The textbooks tell us the Nazis were pure evil fanatics who appeared out of nowhere and built a war machine on hate alone. But the real story isn't in Berlin, it's on Wall Street. A dozen American banks and corporations didn't just do business with Hitler. They built him, bankrolled him, armed him, and kept funneling money even after American soldiers started dying. Some companies came out of the war richer than they went in. 1933. Where did Hitler's money come from? When Hitler seized power, Germany's economy was destroyed. The Treaty of Versailles crushed them with reparations. Hyperinflation in the 1920s wiped out savings. Unemployment hit 30%, and the German mark was worthless. You can't build an army with speeches. You need steel, oil, cash, lots of cash. Germany in 1933 had none of that. So where did the money come from? Wall Street's role. In the 1920s, American banks were flush with cash and lending heavily to Germany. Despite Germany losing World War I and owing billions in reparations, U.S. banks saw opportunity. The 1924 Dawes Plan, J.P. Morgan, Dillon Red, and Chase National Bank restructured German debt, issued bonds, and made Germany dependent on American capital. Between 1924 to 1931, $475 million flowed from the U.S. to Germany, equivalent to $8 billion today. This wasn't charity. These were loans with interest and strings attached. American bankers effectively ran Germany's economy through the Dawes Committee. When Hitler came to power, he inherited the whole system. And American banks didn't pull out, they doubled down. Standard Oil, fueling the war machine. Rockefeller-owned Standard Oil had a deal with IG Farben, the German chemical giant, which later produced Zyklon B for the gas chambers. Joint ventures, technology sharing. The key was synthetic fuel. Germany had no oil. Zero. They were landlocked, had no colonies, couldn't access Middle Eastern oil fields. So how did the Luftwaffe fly? How did tanks roll across Europe? Standard Oil gave them the technology to manufacture synthetic fuel from coal, the hydrogenation process. Without this, the German military would have run out of fuel in 6 months. Standard Oil knew exactly what they were doing. They had representatives in Germany, received reports, and maintained cooperation even after 1939, after Poland was invaded, after war was declared. The company that became Exxon gave Hitler the technology to fuel his war machine. IBM, industrializing the Holocaust. IBM, the computing company, didn't just sell punch card machines to Germany, they customized them for tracking Jews. Every concentration camp had IBM machines processing data, prisoner numbers, transport schedules, death counts, work assignments, who lived, who died, all processed on IBM equipment. IBM's German subsidiary, DuPont, maintained the machines throughout the war, sent technicians, provided updates. IBM headquarters in New York collected royalties. Every punch card sold, every machine leased, IBM got paid. An American company profited from organizing genocide. They didn't pull triggers, they just made mass murder efficient, industrial, trackable. After the war, no prosecution, no consequences. They're still one of the biggest tech companies on the planet. Ford, the anti-Semite's contribution. Henry Ford was a rabid anti-Semite. He published the Dearborn Independent, blaming Jews for everything, communism, banking, war. He published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, that fake conspiracy text. Hitler loved him, kept Ford's portrait on his desk, called him an inspiration. Ford's German plants didn't stop production when war broke out. They ramped up, manufacturing trucks for the Wehrmacht, building engines for German military vehicles, using slave labor from concentration camps. After the U.S. entered the war in 1941, Ford Werke was designated a critical military contractor by the German government. The insane part. After the war, Ford demanded the U.S. government compensate him for Allied bombing damage to his German factories. He wanted American taxpayers to pay him for bombing factories that built Nazi trucks. General Motors, wheels of the Blitzkrieg. GM's German subsidiary, Opel, built the trucks that carried Wehrmacht soldiers across Europe and manufactured engines for Luftwaffe planes. By 1939, Opel was producing half of Germany's trucks and a third of its armored vehicles. The Blitzkrieg that destroyed Poland and France rolled on General Motors wheels. GM executives maintained control throughout. When the U.S. went to war with Germany after Pearl Harbor, GM's Opel plants kept producing. The company claimed they couldn't control foreign subsidiaries. Translation: we're making too much money to care. After the war, GM sued the U.S. government for $33 million, demanding compensation for damage Allied bombs did to factories making the Nazi war machine. They won. They got paid. Chase National Bank, helping Nazis plunder Jews. After the Nazis occupied Paris in 1940, Chase's, now J.P. Morgan Chase, Paris branch froze Jewish accounts, helped Nazis liquidate assets, stripped wealth from families being sent to death camps. The bank operated in Nazi-occupied France until 1944, 3 years after Pearl Harbor. An American bank helping Nazis steal from Jews while American soldiers were dying to liberate Europe. Documents that surfaced in the 1990s showed Chase executives knew. They received reports, made decisions, kept the branch open because it was profitable. Other accomplices. DuPont sold chemicals to Germany. Union Banking Corporation, run by Prescott Bush, father of future President George H.W. Bush, held Nazi assets, financed German steel production. ITT sold communications equipment to the German military, had representatives negotiating with Nazis throughout the war. These weren't rogue operations. These were board-level decisions. CEOs knew, shareholders profited, and the U.S. government looked the other way until public pressure became too much. The numbers are staggering. The scale was massive. IG Farben used over 80,000 slave laborers at Auschwitz alone, working them to death, making synthetic rubber and fuel, with IBM machines tracking every single one. Ford Werke produced 78,000 trucks for the Wehrmacht. Opel produced 29,000. Combined, that's over a third of German military logistics. Without American trucks, the Nazis couldn't have conquered France, couldn't have reached Moscow, couldn't have transported Jews to concentration camps. The Holocaust required industrial efficiency. American corporations provided it for profit. After the war, zero accountability. None of these companies were truly held accountable after the war. There were trials. The Nuremberg industrialist trials prosecuted IG Farben and Krupp executives. But American companies were protected because the U.S. government needed them for post-war reconstruction. The Marshall Plan needed industrial capacity. The Cold War needed manufacturing. Ford, GM, and IBM got government contracts and Marshall Plan money. Documents were sealed, classified, buried. It took researchers 50 years to expose the full picture. Lawsuits in 1998 forced disclosures. Survivors sued. Documents surfaced. Letters, memos, contracts proving executives knew, proving they profited. The settlements were pathetic. In 2000, German industry created a $5 billion fund for slave laborers. Ford and GM combined contributed $20 million, pocket change compared to what they made. IBM paid nothing, denied knowledge until the 2000s, and settled privately 60 years later with no admission, no apology. The pattern repeats today. This isn't unique. It's a pattern. American companies do business with monsters because the profit is too good to pass up, and it's happening right now. China's Xinjiang. Apple, Nike, Tesla all manufacture in Xinjiang, where Uyghurs are in concentration camps. Forced labor, surveillance, cultural genocide. The U.S. State Department officially calls it genocide. American companies lobby against sanctions, argue supply chains are too complex, say they can't verify labor practices. Same playbook. In the 1930s, it was, we can't control foreign subsidiaries. Today, it's supply chains are complex. Different words, same excuse, same profit motive. Other examples. Google developed Dragonfly, a censored search engine for China that would filter results, hide Tiananmen, block human rights information. Canceled after employee revolt, but the intent was clear. Access to 1 billion users was worth compromising on freedom. Facebook's algorithm was used to organize genocide in Myanmar. The Rohingya massacre, over 25,000 dead, coordinated through Facebook posts. Oil companies doing business with Saudi Arabia despite Khashoggi's murder, despite Yemen being bombed with American weapons. Cisco built China's Great Firewall. Oracle sells database software to track dissidents. Not exactly the same as the 1930s, but the moral calculation is identical. Profit versus principle. Profit wins every time. The brutal truth. Corporations have no morals, only shareholders. Shareholders want returns, quarterly earnings, stock prices. If doing business with a genocidal regime is legal and profitable, they'll do it. Executives will rationalize. We create jobs. We can't compete if we don't. It's complicated. Then they donate to charity, fund museums, sponsor schools, polish their image, just like Ford, GM, and IBM did. You can build hospitals with one hand and gas chambers with the other. As long as the hospital is visible and the gas chamber is hidden, people remember you as a hero. What you should do. First, understand that World War II wasn't just soldiers and bombs. It was financed. American banks restructured German debt. American companies built German trucks, planes, and fuel. American technology tracked victims. Without Wall Street, Hitler couldn't have rearmed. Without Ford and GM, the Wehrmacht couldn't have advanced. Without IBM, the Holocaust wouldn't have been industrialized. Second, accountability is a joke. Most executives died wealthy. Most companies paid trivial settlements decades later. They're still operating, still profiting. The pattern continues because consequences don't exist. Third, watch where you put your money. The iPhone in your pocket might be assembled by Uyghurs in concentration camps. Nike shoes too. Tesla does business with Chinese surveillance companies. Your money finances this, not intentionally, but it does. Companies count on you not caring enough to stop. Fourth, this isn't conspiracy theory, it's documented. Congressional investigations, lawsuits, declassified documents. It's all public record, but it's not taught, not discussed. Because the companies involved still have power, still lobby, still control the narrative. This story didn't end in 1945. It's repeating. Different countries, different products, same profit motive, same excuses. The families that profited from Hitler still run the world. Different names, same bloodlines, same playbook. We just stopped paying attention. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.